but we also suffer from a Messiah complex where we say, but I can save that kid. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, he was an absolute turd at the last place he was at, but here with me, he will be okay. He will, and that's our
Conversation. I had that conversation this morning with the coach. All right, welcome to another episode of Beyond Coaching. I have a getting to be a longtime friend with us today that I've been pestering for a long time to join the show. I have Dr. Jesse Godding of Nelson University. Jesse, thanks for joining me today.
Well, I appreciate having the opportunity to finally do this with you, Rob. It's good. I know that you accuse me of blowing you off for doing this podcast, and that is not the case. I'm very honored.
I would say I bullied you into it a little bit, but that's okay. Um, so you've had an interesting career. You've coached. You've been an AD for a while. A lot of awards. Kind of take 2 minutes and just give us the quick rundown of your career.
So started coaching, and man, it was my senior year of college. I was done with eligibility. One of those things where you take multiple years to complete a 4-year degree, and so I started coaching 1988. Ended up in a situation where small school, and coached in small schools for a number of years. Ended up down here at Nelson, which was Southwestern Assemblies of God University at that point in time, 2002, and had been an AD at the previous school for 4 years, so had that experience. Came in and coached football here. 2011, I added the athletic director responsibilities to that. My last year of coaching was the 2014 season, and then kind of the once I stopped coaching, the administrative world kind of opened up, and Jim Abbott, who was in the conference that we were in at Oklahoma City, he said, "Hey, what about serving on the National Administrative Council? Um, what about being on the Athletic Directors Association Board of Directors?" Um, Alan Grossbach called me about being on Return on Athletics because we had kind of a similar interest in that, getting started off the ground. And there was a number of other task force and different things that you get asked to do or roped into or volunteer for. And so I've been able to serve not only at the institutional level, but the national level as well. And it's been very rewarding. So.
Mm-hmm. I think the place we first connected was actually when you were working on your dissertation.
Yeah.
You'd email me about something. I can't remember what it was, but if I'm remembering right, you studied faith development in college athletes. Is that correct?
I did. So yeah, my dissertation was I wanted to look at just with where we're at in our society, and what funds are tied to at the federal level. We're saying, hey, we have Christian education, and we're saying that uh, a career in sport at the collegiate level in our universities, it will help with character formation. It will help with spiritual formation. So I was specifically looking at spiritual formation, and are we doing what we say we're doing? Because if you're running an athletic program that's connected to a denomination or connected to an institution that has Christian roots, there's probably part of the mission that says this is part of athletics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to dig into that a little bit deeper and have develop you know the thought process of, okay, if we are doing this, then what are the recommendations? How do we get this done? And in seniors, is there any evidence that we've actually accomplished our goal? And so it was interesting. You've done a doctorate, I've done a doctorate. I think there's a point where you go, good Lord, let's just let this end. and then you step away from it for a while. And I admire people who like get out of their doctorate and then dive into, I'm going to write the book now.
Mhm.
I'm going to do further research. I was like, I'm going to put this on the shelf and never see this again. uh,
Uh,
but but
so yeah, so I'm curious. I'm stealing this from somewhere. I don't know where, but I'm pretty convinced of, unless done really intentionally, um, character formation, spiritual formation doesn't happen in athletics, or you see a, I don't know what the term is, decrease in character because of participation in college athletics. Because I can't imagine there's a university in the country that doesn't say character formation, or if there's a faith base and spiritual formation is part of their mission. Um,
yeah,
so would you agree with that? That unless done intentionally?
yeah, you know, it has to be very intentional, and I think it starts with the leadership of the institution, bleeds down into the athletic director. Athletic director, who do you hire? What do you ask of those individuals? I mean, I when I talk to prospective uh, coaches here, we actually use the term pastor in our hiring process, where we say, hey, we don't have dorm directors, we have dorm pastors, okay, on our campus. So when we look at coaches, you're out here shepherding, you're out here discipling. You've got these same characteristics as a pastor would with his congregation. This is our expectation of you. So we're going to use the verbiage that kind of hits home, like this is
Mhm.
part of it. And I really think it has to be extremely intentional. And in an athletic department, you can become a subculture so quickly within
Mhm.
an athletic department, to where now you're at this Christian university and you go talk to the faculty or you go talk to students that are non-athletes, and you have, well, this is our culture and our mission. And then you go down into the athletic department and there's this disconnect where they've become a counterculture
Mhm.
to the overall wanted culture of the institution. Well, the only way you stop that is by being very intentional and having people who will say, hey, we're not going to do that at the athlete level, we're not going to do that at the staff level, we're going to recruit this manner, we're going to treat kids this way when we get here, this is the expectation of them. And the more and more like an NAIA or a D3 becomes dependent on student athlete population, there's just more risk of that taking place, where it becomes a counterculture.
Why do you think that is, as opposed to, say, any other population on a campus?
Well, so you know, one thing, I think it's both uh, an athlete, like talent acquisition thing,
Mhm.
but he's really good. The coach, like at Friends, at Nelson, man, we could name another dozen universities where there's a fit, right?
Yeah.
And we ask coaches to recruit to that fit, but all of us are selfish. All of us as a coach want to be competitive, and we suffer from that, but we also suffer from a messiah complex, where we say, but I can save that kid. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, he was an absolute turd at the last place he was at, but here with me, he will be okay. He will, and that's our,
I had that conversation this morning with the coach.
and that's, I think, you've coached, I've coached, we all go through that. Like, this is our messiah complex. Yeah,
Mhm.
he hasn't worked out anywhere else, but we can save that kid. Like, if I just work with him, he'll be fine here. And
And they happen
you
to
know
be really good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, talent acquisition. Like, we're not doing that with kids who run 5.5s and want to play wide receiver. We're doing this with 4.4s. So I think that's part of it. I do think it's hiring practices, and I think it's continued um, reiteration of expectation level from the university, holding coaches accountable in terms of where they're at, their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, it's one thing to tell an athlete you're going to act this way at our institution, and then the coach goes off and does completely things completely antithetical to what you're asking the athletes to do.
Yeah.
Uh, Leadership is there's a price to pay for it, and I think within our athletics, within our NAI institutions and D3 institutions, if you want to do that. Plus, I think there's another aspect to this as well, Rob, and that is I don't think you can do athletics anymore, just athletics. I think there has to be value added.
Mm-hmm.
That can be in different ways. I mean, it's kind of funny when you hear Nick Saban say, "Well, I got out of coaching, and one of the reasons I got out was this was becoming transactional versus transformational." And I don't want to be that way with athletes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a guy that none of us look at and go, "Well, there's a very transformational coach." But as he looks at it and reviews it and goes, no, I want to be transformational with athletes, and this has become a transaction. What he's saying is, I can add value to your life, but I don't think I can add value to your life if it's all about
And
the
this part.
dollars,
Yeah.
yeah, that you're going to
Well,
get.
and one thing I hear you saying, I totally agree on the value add piece. One thing I've started saying is at its core, coaches are community builders, and how do you create that community, whether you're the best player or the bottom end? I don't care if it's high school, college, whatever. I've seen coaches very successfully and very unsuccessfully build an environment where kids find value and want to be a part of, even if they're not playing. And those are the healthiest team cultures.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. If it's just, I just don't think, and this goes to what type of athlete we have in our schools now. That athlete has grown up with a lot of different things at their fingertips and a lot of different people telling them all sorts of messages. And, they don't need the sport. And most of their life is about more than just that activity. So if all I'm about as a coach is baseball, 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 chances are they're not going to really play that hard for me. They're not going to recognize the value of what I'm doing with them. Um, they may know baseball very well, but I really think, and this is people in general, right? They're looking for someone to add value to their lives. They're looking for someone who can go beyond, like, listen, I can take you. We, we follow people who are relevant to our goals and relatable to our pain, right?
Say that again. That sounded profound.
We follow people who are relevant to our goals, but relatable to our pain.
Yeah,
Right?
that's good.
And I think when you look at that and you break that down as a coach, well, that's got to be both, right? Like you have to relate to the pain of a college 18 to 22-year-old growing in all these different directions. How are you adding value to that aspect of their lives? And then yes, they do have goals. They maybe want to be a starter, or they want to play 4 years of ball, or whatever it is, but you as the coach are relatable to their goals. Are relevant to their goals, but you also got to be relatable to their pain. And as an 18 to 22-year-old growing up in America today, hey, I've got a lot of things on my plate.
Mm-hmm. Well,
How do I handle?
I'm gonna challenge one thing you said. I want you to respond. Then I have a question. So my challenge would be: I think kids feel like and families feel like they need the sport more than ever. Partially because big business, youth sports has become such big business, and social media has become such a big thing. Just the hey, look at me, I signed, I'm playing college sports. I think that matters. And I think there's a part of them that the families are so deep in that process that they need it. So I think there's an unhealthy need to play at the college level or to shine at the high school level. I heard you kind of saying something that made me think you disagree with that. So respond.
Okay, so how deep do we want to go with this? So
Yeah, let's do it.
when
People can
we
turn it off if they don't care.
yeah, when we look at sport, we look across the culture of sport. I'm going to look at sport as the same as I look at the culture of business, culture of government, whatever culture you want to name. If it's not founded on a theocracy, it is a broken culture. Okay.
Okay.
So, so the culture of sport to me is broken, and I have a choice. Do I operate outside the culture of sport and do what many Christians did for a couple generations after World War One, and just say, hey, there's no interaction here between sport and Christianity. And then the kind of that intertwining came back in to Christianity and sport, and I think that's healthy. So my yes, there is. I think there's in our society there's an unhealthy emphasis on sport, and it shows up in the youth culture. It shows up in what people are putting on, the value of a scholarship in college, what people are putting on, the value of participation throughout, and we see that, we see those emotions pop up over and over and over again in appropriate and inappropriate ways, right?
Yeah. Sure.
We worry about the inappropriate, but we do see appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So then, if I'm a Christian and I'm working inside this culture, then I should be able to. This goes back to the value added. If I'm a Christian and I'm working inside this culture, I recognize that you're coming to me and you're probably focused for me in the wrong area.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every kid that comes to us to play basketball will be in the NBA, right? Um, I mean, this every kid that comes to us to play football somehow got missed by every Division One and every other school and landed in an AI school. But boy, their potential is there to play. They're like, I will be drafted in the spring. Um, and so there's that mindset that exists within. And what are they getting from that? They're getting, oh, this is my affirmation
Mm-hmm.
from the culture of sport. This is, who I am from the culture of sport. So I'm being affirmed, and my identity is locked into sport. Well, both of those things, you and I would go, that's nuts, kid.
Yeah, that's
Like,
stupid. Yeah.
this is not where you get your identity. And so why are Christians in this whole thing? I think Christians are in this whole thing so that they can point out, hey, as part of value added in our universities, we're going, this is not your identity. And this is not where you get your affirmation from. And here, let me plug in this other aspect of life, the spiritual aspect of life that does satisfy those things for you. And um, and I don't know if that helps or hurts my answer, but that's where it's
No,
kind of.
I think it's a fair one. Here's my question is so, okay, your background's football. We kind of went faith development, character development, community building, take it whatever way you want in that kind of circle. Um, you have a roster of 120 football players. How the heck do you do that in a practical way? Like, how
Yeah,
does somebody take that and everything you're saying right on? And I obviously have some bias and opinions on this, but I want yours is how does a coach connect with that many kids and build a system that supports the community, character development, spiritual development?
yeah. So I think there's probably a macro aspect to that and a micro aspect to that. Okay. Um, you know, Moses's father-in-law Jethro shows up and goes, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, you cannot, like, you got an entire country to run here. a traveling country to run. You cannot sit here day after day answering citizen X's question on whether or not he should get compensation for the rooster that died on his neighbor's property, right? So I don't think that you and I can look at that and go, well, my football coach should be just as involved with the 120th kid as he is with the kids that gravitate towards him. Because there are, right? I mean, any team dynamic, there's going to be kids that gravitate towards the coach gravitates towards them, whatever that reason that may be. But I do look at, like, take Moses for example, where what came out of that was his father-in-law said, why don't you get 70 people to help you? And this is still the mission. This is still the goal. Here's still the laws that I want enacted, but break that down to those 70 and let them deal with these groups. In a large setting, in a football, I think that still works. And I think so that's now I got to hire the right people as assistants, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tell my guys all the time, like, look, I'm hiring you. You believe in this. You believe in what we're doing here. You cannot hire in such a manner that you're the only one on the island saying, hey, guys, this is important.
Yep.
There has to be other people on the island with you saying, you know what coach talks about in those team meetings? Well, it's still important out here when I'm in charge of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has to be that aspect of it. And I do think you, as a head coach, can be intentional about, touching every kid in some manner on the team. I remember a story, one of Tom Osborne's players were talking about him, and they said, one of the tactics that he used was after a game, win, lose, whatever, he would make his way back through the bus. Then he would physically touch everybody. Like, and so I kind of adopted that. And, what's interesting, there was a study done. So, people go, oh gosh, but there was a study done that say men actually touch each other more in conversation than women do. And if you think through your daily life, like when two guys meet, what do? They, shake hands, high five, hug, whatever. So there is actually more contact. So you can take advantage of that as a coach, and you can actually, so we got out when I was coaching, all right, you get out at a convenience store, you let them off and they're going in after a game, and you can just walk through the store and talk to each kid and touch them on the shoulder or whatever. And there's that connection, right? There's that physical. So I think there are ways that even large groups can be accommodated, but you can't be on the island by yourself accommodating what you want to get done in that program, just with your voice.
Well said. Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Beyond Coaching is a podcast developed and produced by the Impactful Coaching Project with the support of Friends University. The Impactful Coaching Project seeks to develop coaches that coach the whole person and is the thought leader in coaching the 21st century athlete. The Impactful Coaching Project produces training, information, and research to help coaches improve. To see more information, go to impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Thank you.